Hello.
Hello, school.
Hello.
Okay, well, I was initially not in the band.
It started off as a three-piece. Me, Emmett, and Aaron.
Ian and I went to preschool together. We've known each other forever, but Aaron and Anders and I went to grade school together, so we all kind of just meshed and got together and started writing together.
And we started about probably 2-3 years ago. I'd say 3 years ago, actually, at this point.
Sophomore year, I think it was. Anders punched a kid in the face.
A person I knew took advantage of my best friend, and that resulted in physical violence between the two of us, and I apologize, and I do not condone physical violence. I'm a pacifist, and I cried after it.
And then he was like, "You want to start a band?"
What?
Mid tears.
Really?
He was like crying because he hit the kid. He was literally crying because he hit the kid, and then he was like, "Yeah, let's start a band." And I was like, "Okay."
So that's the origin story. We have this boy to thank for everything.
But I couldn't play anything. So what I did was I was kind of just picked up guitar, learned a little bit of it, learned how to play guitar and bass, and I started writing my own stuff, and I started playing it for them.
So we decided, hey, our very, very good friend Ian can sing, and he is teaching himself to play guitar. Let's have him join us. So he did. Yay!
We all kind of came to it together. I don't think it was one person who decided it.
Oh, I suggested it, I guess. Man, how did it? I guess it was because the idea that I had in my head was, we were a band for 2 years, like 2.5, and we, we played together, we wrote songs together, but nothing we were, we had a goal in mind, or we would, record it.
And we had decided that we were going to create an album over the summer after senior year, because senior year was really busy. But we still wanted to do stuff in between. So before we were going to record it, in between our EP and our album, we thought it would be interesting if we just kind of supported each other's side projects.
There was a lot of time where we were just writing on our own, where I was writing my own solo stuff, Aaron was writing some stuff, like Emmett, Ian, everyone was kind of writing their own thing.
We all had a lot of ideas to bring to the table, and we decided that they were all coming from such different genres and different kinds of music that we decided that we could pull it together as a step-by-step process.
And then the idea came to us that why don't we each record a 3-song EP that is where each member is kind of the predominant, the songwriter and the creator of each EP, the kind of person who gets to lead each.
We wrote enough content for an album, but it was a good way to kind of start writing together and, get all our individual ideas of what we wanted to do out of the way before going on to write cohesively.
I had a lot of the songs on my particular EP were a lot more thought out. A lot of the parts on mine I had already in my head, but there was definitely a part of it that was Losergroove collaborated within. Mm-hmm. But I think mine was a lot more straight from my head.
It's pretty easy, I'd say. I mean, when I was leading the creative process on my own EP, I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist, I guess. Not too much. I like things to go with the flow, but we wrote the third song, Pixie Dust, on my EP about 8 times.
Anders is a picky person.
I wouldn't say I'm picky, I would just say that if it feels right, it should be, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole creative process with me was a lot of me kind of just going with how things felt right, and kind of getting opinions here and there from the guys, and they said, but I wrote a bulk of it, and a lot of it was just how it went in my head. So it took more time because I don't communicate well with music really. Like in my head, it's very visual and it's not incredibly like, you know, it's not easy to write down on paper. It's not easy to kind of say with words. It's kind of like I would find myself being like, can you go up and down? And they'd be like, what the fuck are you saying? Excuse my language.
When it came to mine, I'm not picky, so
You're
I
not
had
picky
like
Anders.
guitar and lyrics and vocals worked out. And then I showed up to practice and I was like, okay guys, play stuff over this. And they were like, okay. And we did that a couple times until we found whatever sounded good. And yeah, like I pretty much just let them write. I had them write the rest of the stuff for it. And unless it was like really not good sounding, I was like, yeah, that works. So, yeah.
It was a little strange. I don't know. We worked on my EP last just by how it worked out in terms of songwriting, of like what we decided on, and so I already kind of had the experience of working on the other 3 EPs. So I was just kind of used to being like writing my own stuff, but writing like a bass riff or a guitar riff or harmony. So like adding my own songs and then trying to like mold it towards the sound I want was very strange. If there was something that I didn't like, we would work on something else instead of like talking it out or agreeing on it. If there was a part of the song that I wasn't particularly fond of, it would be like we'd work around it because it's for the creative process of the person. And that was a little strange. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So I don't know. It was really great though, because I couldn't have asked to work with like a more understanding and like great group of guys.
So when it came to doing stuff for the other guys, like Anders specifically is very particular about what he wants things to sound like. So I'm just kind of there, like, okay, I'll play this, and he's like, yes or no, and I'm like, okay, I'll play this, and then it goes on and on. That's why Pixie does have like 8 incarnations. That's what I did for all the guys. Like, I mean, I put my input in on what I thought of saying. Yeah, I mean, like, it wasn't the worst thing ever. It's just at times it's like you've tried writing like 8 different bass riffs in a row, and like they keep saying no, and you're like, shit. I need to come up with something. So, like, there were even times where like I handed off the writing of that specifically to one of like whoever's song it was or whatever, or I would be like, all right, this isn't working for me. Like, I can't come up with something that works. So do one of you guys want to do it? And sometimes that would happen and they'd write something and then I'd just be playing it. And other times I would write it. And it was all good, because as long as it sounds good, that's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mostly what the person would come with. Like when each one of us was doing the EP, we would each come with like chords and lyrics. So we all just played fillers for each other. So like for example, and I would play whatever was needed. So like on Aaron's EP, Aaron wanted me to play bass for his entire EP. So for him, it was just working out a riff that would not only work with his melody, something that he really liked, something that he got excited about. And if it was something he was like okay about, like I would work harder to try to appeal his ear.
Mm-hmm.
You do it like as opposed to the other, like what Anders would want, or like what Emmett would want if we're working on Aaron's EP.
Well, it definitely varied to a large extent. I think Ian had a lot more of a mentality like mine, where he had an idea and he really wanted it to. I mean, they all had ideas, but Ian had a lot more in his head that he really heard and he wanted to be played. And I guess it was the same with Anders. But Aaron's was really the most, where it was just like, do what you think is best. It was the most freeform of the EPs. But I think Anders and Ian were much more concrete about, they heard something in their head and we worked on it until we found what they had wanted.
I would say it was a little different for me than it was, being that I'm the only drummer, and like the only one who can play drums in the group, in the band. It was a little different because I wrote all the drums for everything. I don't know, I went with it. I shared my opinion as it was, as I thought how things I would like listening to, and like what their vision was like, just hearing what they were thinking the song should sound like. But when it came to like writing the drums, it was definitely, I would say, different than the other members, just because it just is different, you know.
So, I enjoyed the part where I wasn't songwriting better, because, I don't know, there was a lot less pressure on me, and instead of trying to make, like, the basics of the song, which are always a little monotonous, it was just kind of like what I think would sound cool. It's like on Aaron's EP, I was writing the bass, so he would have something, and I would play something that I thought sounded good. There's almost a different type of, it's a different job, like filling is, I don't know, there's something a lot more satisfying about that.
Yeah.
One to like write the chords, is to be the one who just adds something, like you know, like harmony or like keyboard, like all the. So I would say that I really enjoy that part of it better, and because also there's a lot less pressure. It's really kind of the main part of that, is what I would say.
Like us now as Losergroove, and not as like, you know, one of us leading the creative process. Like all of us leading the creative process is a lot more fun. It's a lot more. It's a lot easier. It flows really well. Whereas
I think the perfect process for me, and I think for most people, but I don't speak for most people, is like it's a good mixture throughout the entire thing. It's like somebody's like, okay, I have this, and then somebody else is like, oh, let me try throwing this on, and then everybody else is like, that sounds good, or that sounds bad, and like just a really cohesive, cooperative form of writing, I think, is the best way to go about things. Definitely the best way to do it is like a cooperative. Everybody's taking charge at different times, and everybody's agreeing and working together.
I don't know, that's tough, because it really varies upon the song and the type of music that I'm playing. Genres that I'm more interested in, I'm more confident leading in, but I would say for the most part I like to collaborate more and bounce ideas off of people rather than be the head of it. I don't know, because I feel like I tend to get a little antsy about how I want things and picky, and I feel like collaborating is a lot more of an open space where it's not as strict and like to the point. Oh no.
Bye, Rutgers. Prep. Place.